Hey everybody, my name is Danielle and this is Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. Your presence is very much appreciated. So welcome or welcome back. Today I'm going to chat about Hallmark's new original series, The Way Home. The Way Home, it premiered on Sunday, January 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern. And all of the episodes will air this season on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Hallmark Channel. And it stars Shyler Leigh, who plays Kat, Sadie LaFlamme Snow, who plays Alice, Andie MacDowell, who plays Del, Alex Hook, who plays young Kat, and Evan Williams, who plays Elliot Augenstein. And the synopsis is as follows. Kat is presented with a book deal that asks her to dredge up painful memories. Del wants to say goodbye to the past, while Alice yearns to return there. All right, I was looking forward to this new series, and it's now added in my rotation of TV shows to watch on Sunday. I thought this first episode started pretty strong. It left me with lots of questions, which will draw me back in for the next episode and moving on forward from there. And I'm really excited to talk about it. So let's get started. All right, The Way Home, Season 1, Episode 1, and it was titled Mothers and Daughters. First, this is a family drama. It follows the lives of 3 generations of women, Kat Landry, her 15-year-old daughter Alice, and Kat's mother, Del. All of these women, well, Alice is a young woman, but all of these women are strong-willed. More than 20 plus years ago, there were life-changing events that prompted Kat to move away from her hometown in Canada. It's a farm town called Port Haven, and she remains estranged from Del to this day. Alice has never met her grandmother and is unaware of the reasons for their fractured family. She makes a comment to Kat at one point in the car ride when Kat is trying to sell living in her hometown to Alice, right? I'll talk about how they arrived there in a second. Well, what those circumstances were to get them to move back home to Canada. But anyway, Alice makes a comment to Kat at one point on their car ride back to Canada. Well, if it's so great where we're moving to, and if it's so great, how come you haven't gone back there for more than 20 years? Anyway, Alice is dealing with the fact that her parents have split and getting a divorce. So we see her in this first episode act out, right? It kind of sets the stage of why Alice is so angry. Kat is also dealing with just being fired from her job when she receives an unexpected letter from Del, her mom, asking her to return home, to come back home. And we'll watch the season as these 3 women, these 3 generations of women slowly work to find their footing as a family and learn how to find their way back to each other. All right, so that's the premise of the whole series. So in this first episode, we are introduced to the characters, right? It begins with a mystery woman running through the woods in 1814. There were men with lanterns chasing her, and she says a prayer or whispers something before jumping into the pond. So they're chasing her through the woods. She ends up at this spot at the pond. She whispers something and then jumps into the pond. They were very intentional in not showing her face to the audience. So I'm sure we'll learn more as the series goes on. All we know about this woman right now in 1814 is that she's being chased. She has long, full black hair, and the entry where she jumps into the pond looks just like the same spot where we later see Alice fall in. So this is no coincidence. Next, we meet Alice, who is a troubled teen. She's a little bratty. She's entitled, and it's obvious she's affected by her parents' split, right? They're getting a divorce. We meet Kat, who is Alice's mother, and she's just gotten fired from her job as a reporter. This was a job that, to me, seems like something that gave her a little purpose and is part of her building her own identity, aside from being a wife and mother. Del is Kat's mother. She's the matriarch of the family. From what we learned in this first episode, she runs the family farm in Canada, and she's coping with losing her husband and son. And the way she copes, her coping mechanism is just not dwell on it, right? Pretend it didn't exist. Move on. That's what she says. We need to just move on. Elliot, who is Kat's best friend growing up, and he's now come back to the town, and he's a science teacher at the high school in the town that they grew up in. He appears to be a key person when it comes to this time travel at the Magic Pond, right? Young Kat, who's the teenage Kat, I want to say she's 15 years old, the same age as Alice. And so we see this character's perspective as a teen, and during time, or as a teen, and during time, her family was happy and intact. Young Elliot, we don't see a lot of him. We're introduced to him in this first episode, but I wanted to mention him because, again, I think Elliot plays a key role in this Magic Pond. And then we see Jacob, which is Kat's younger brother. We only see him in the 1999 Younger Landry family. We know that something happened to him and it devastated the family, so much so that in current day, we see how that fractured or factored into Kat and Dell's relationship, because they are estranged. All right, first, I think that the casting for this show is really good, especially that casting for young Kat. There is a likeness, a physical resemblance between adult Kat and young Kat. And I think that it helps. It helps a lot when following the time travel, right? For Elliot, I think there's a little resemblance between the adult Elliot and young Elliot, but I think it's more so in the glasses that the character wears. But the young Kat and adult Kat characters, I think they were spot on in that casting. They have the same shape eyes, the same cheekbones, the same smile, right? So they were spot on with that casting. The story begins to unfold as we see Alice hit the stage with her guitar for her turn during the school show. Once Alice is on stage, the first thing she sees is one, that her dad in the audience is on his phone, right? He's not engaged. He appears not to be engaged in what's happening on the stage. And the second thing she notices is that her mom is not there. So this triggers Alice and she runs off stage and intentionally pulls the fire alarm, right? She didn't perform at all. She froze, she ran off stage and then intentionally pulls the fire alarm. And in this first episode, about the first 10 minutes or so, it goes by really fast. We get a lot of the foundational story. It goes by really fast where we see the consequences of Alice's behavior leading up to that show, including the fire alarm incident. It gets her expelled from school, right? After she's expelled, we watch as her parents, Kat and Brady, try to figure out what to do next. And remember, Kat and Brady are going through a divorce. Brady has moved on because Rachel, which is his new love interest, right, is moving in with him. I thought it was strange that he told her all of this in the middle of them trying to find their daughter who just caused havoc at the school by pulling that fire alarm, right? Brady is also the type to me that he comes from money. That's not the problem, but he's the type that likes to throw money at the problem, right? When he offered the principal of the school money to pay for the damages that Alice caused by pulling that fire alarm, he thought it would have some type of influence over the entire situation. But that principal was like, no, Alice is no longer welcome here. And she walked off. When they catch up with Alice, Alice, after she ran off stage, right, pulled the fire alarm, she ran off stage. So they were trying to figure out, where did she go? When they catch up with Alice, she was home throwing a party at the house. After Kat and Brady kicks everyone out of the house and Kat begins to scold Alice, Brady says, oh, hey, I have to go back to work. I've been gone for a long time today. I got a case early in the morning. I got to go back to work. I thought that this was telling. This and the comment that Brady made earlier after Kat told him she was fired. He clearly has an idea of roles in the family. He mentioned something like, Well, now that you're fired, you can now homeschool Alice. Or he said something to that effect. And Kat was like, this job meant everything to me. So to me, I thought this factored into their split. Like when a woman begins to develop an identity of her own outside of being a wife and a mother, you enter into the relationship one way, then there's growth and change, and sometimes it doesn't align with the husband's idea of what that relationship is supposed to look like. And that's what I see when it comes to Brady, right? By his smart comments like that. So Brady, he leaves, and this is all happening in front of Alice, right? She's like, well, I can leave too since Dad left, and somehow, she feels like because Brady left, that gives her permission to leave as well, to walk off. But Kat was like, no, you stop right there. And then it's confirmed, like through that confrontation between Kat and Alice, it's confirmed that Alice was indeed bothered by her mom not being there, not being at the show. And it goes much deeper than that, because Alice is truly having difficulty coping with her parents' split, and she's very angry, right? All right, let me fast forward a little, because I don't want this to be too long. So Alice is expelled and Kat was fired. So after receiving the letter from Dell, Kat's mom, Kat moves them to Canada, Port Haven, to live with Dell on the farm for a fresh start. Once they're on the farm, it's a little strained, that first day. It's a little strained, period, right? Dell and Kat are estranged, and Alice has never met Dell and wants to go back to live with her dad. We see more of the mother-daughter dynamic between Dell and Kat and Alice. Kat notices that Dell has completely removed any sign of her dad and Jacob around the house. Remember, Jacob is her little brother. There's no pictures of them. It's like they weren't even there. And on the surface, it just appears to have that Dell has moved on, forgetting about them, right? And that bothers Kat, and so much so she digs at Dell a few times with comments like, she makes digs at Dell a few times with her comments, like, oh, well, from what I see, it's like they have never existed, right? And I guess what I'm trying to say is that Kat is very angry at Dell as well, right? So whatever happened all those years ago has an effect, or we see the effect of that in current day, right? Dell, on the other hand, when they first arrive, Kat and Alice, she first greets Alice when they arrive. She shows Alice around the farm, and she makes mention of the pond, right? So that's the first time we hear something about the pond. Yeah, I think so. I think that was the first time, yeah. An important moment was at the dinner table on that first night. Dell asks them what their plans are, She says, the Landry women have to have a plan. So Kat wants to write a book, and Dell's reaction comes across as a little critical. And then Alice informed them that she was going to finish out the school year online until Dell informs her that she's registered Alice for school, and Alice will start in the morning. This kind of segued into the sleeping arrangements, where Dell initially put Alice in Jacob's room. And mind you, she didn't say Jacob's room. She just said there's a room down the hall to the left or something like that. Kat immediately said, no, I set her up in my old room because there's more space, and I'll take Jacob's room. So Kat was intentional about using the words Jacob's room, right? And the look on Dell's face was telling. Yeah. Minutes later, Kat and Dell are cleaning up the kitchen, and each are commending the other for taking the first step and reaching out to start over to mend their relationship, right? Kat says she read Dell's letter asking them to come home. Dell thought it was Kat making the first step to make a call to her to come home. And Dell is completely puzzled because she insists that she didn't write the letter. And this is part of the mystery in the storyline. And I think we'll later learn someone from the past during the time travel may have written that letter. Yeah, we'll have to see. Alice, on the other hand, she's in the room texting and then talking to her father on the phone, trying to get him to agree for her to stay with him so she doesn't have to be there on the farm. when she discovers the funeral flyer for her grandfather Colton under the bed. Yeah. So that was because Alice has never met the grandmother or the grandfather. So that was her. She saw the flyer, and that's her first introduction to her grandfather, right? So she has a picture in mind in her head now. All right, on Alice's first day of school, she is in Elliot's science class. Remember, Elliot is a science teacher at the high school they grew up in now. And Alice is in his class. When the class ends, he lets her know that if she ever needed help, she can come to him. And this is key to the story, and something that Alice will use when she travels back in time. We also see that Kat has zero luck with her contacts and starting a book or pitching her book idea. It's important to note here that on this morning, we're introduced to Elliot, Kat's best friend. We see Dell confronting Elliot about the letter she thinks he wrote to Kat, but he denies it. Well, I just find it interesting that he denies it. Like, I feel like Elliot knows something, or he's part of this magical thing. So let me get into the time travel. Alice has a rough first day at school, causing her to skip the rest of the day. You know, that's how teens deal with things. Their solution is to run away. So that's what she did. Kat finds her in the diner. We see Alice looking at the video from her 13th birthday, right? We see Kat give, in this video, we see Kat give Alice a bracelet for her 13th birthday. And this was the bracelet that Brady gave to Kat. It has their initials on it, and it's very special. So Alice held on to not only the bracelet, but what it represented for her, right? Happy times where her parents were together and they were happy as a family. Anyway, so Kat tells Alice to go home, and during that heated discussion, she accidentally tells Alice that Rachel is moving in with her dad. Right? She was like, well, I just want to go home with dad. And she's like, well, that can't happen. And then she just spills the beans. Rachel's moving in with your dad. Alice is devastated by this news, and she runs off into the woods, throwing her mom's throwing that bracelet her mom gave her for her 13th birthday into the pond. And then after she thought about it, she regrets doing that and then tries to go get the bracelet and winds up falling into the pond. And we see her panic and struggle underwater when she's then pulled out of the water by who? Young Kat, right? Young Kat is Alice's mother when she was her age. So just to fast forward a little bit here, Young Kat brings her home to change her to warmer clothes. And we learn that the time that she traveled back to was 1999. And it was amazing to me to see how easy it was for Alice to gravitate towards that 1999 Landry family, the younger Landry family. She loved seeing the family so happy. We see young Kat, Colton, her grandfather, Jacob, which is Kat's little brother, and Dell. They eat as a family at the table. Colton plays his guitar and sings. He dances with his wife. Little Jacob has a little camera taking pictures, and Alice loves seeing and is having a good time, right? We also have a brief introduction to young Elliot. On the way back from the pond, after young Kat pulls Alice out of the water, they're heading back home, and they run by the barn and they see Elliot. Elliot peeks his head out of the barn. So the younger Landry family welcomes Alice into their home, and she's just received as a new girl in town that was swimming in their pond. Right? That's the only questions they had. What brings you in town? How about what were you doing in the pond? Right? Like, anyway, so they're having casual conversation and make nothing of it. When it was time for Alice to head home, we see Alice go back into the barn where Elliot was, and it was a cliffhanger with her saying, "You told me to come to you if I ever needed help." Meanwhile, back in current day, Kat, the adult Kat, is trying to find Alice. Remember, once she learned that Rachel was moving in with her dad, she ran off into the woods. And so Kat is seen leaving a message on Alice's phone saying, you know, I love you and all this. That's a good message. Anyway, Kat then calls Elliot, adult Elliot, and Elliot answers the phone, and he's at the pond telling Kat not to worry because Alice will find her way home. How about that? All right, so I like this first episode, and I'll return next week to watch the story unfold a little more. I thought the cast was really good and believable in their roles. I'm interested to see what the story is around Jacob. I think he may have drowned. I'm not sure. It was something that Kat said to Dell when they were worried about Alice not returning home. In the current day, they said Dell said she'll be fine, and Kat said, "Well, Jacob wasn't." So we'll have to learn what happened to Jacob. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that during Alice's time with the younger Landry family in 1999, Jacob took a picture of young Kat and Alice. And later in the current day, we see Kat in Jacob's room, adult Kat in Jacob's room, where she finds a box of pictures that Jacob took. And the one picture we see her pull out was young Kat and a blurred image of the person in the picture with her. Well, it was more like a flash was right over Alice's image. And so that adds a little mystique of how 1999 and 2023 will connect. Right? So lots of questions. I'm looking forward to seeing this all unfold. I'm liking the series so far. It's only episode 1, but I like it. I really like it. I like the characters. Alice was hard to like in the beginning, but she softened as time went on. I'm so interested to see how she returns back to current day, right? Because when the episode ended, she was still in 1999. So how did she get back to 2023, and how do they control going back and forth to the exact time? So that'll be interesting to learn. And remember that the show started off in 1814 with a young woman running in the woods and jumping into the pond. So is that where it starts, And who is that woman? Where is she going? Where did she end up? Also, if Jacob fell into the pond, I wonder if he's in a different time with his dad, and maybe they are doing things to get the Landry women back on good terms. I don't know. And it appears that Elliot, the adult Elliot, knows about the magic pond, right? How did he end up at the exact spot where Alice fell in? And when he told Alice, or when he told Kat, let me go back. When he told Alice that she can reach out to him if she needed, like after the class ended, the science class, he says, "Hey, if you ever need help, reach out to me." Right? It was, I don't know if he emphasized it, but I just thought it was interesting that he told her that, right? And she's going to remember that when she goes back in time. And the fact that he assured Kat that Alice will find her way home. So lots of questions. We'll get answers to all of our questions as the season progresses. Right? I'm liking it so far. The Way Home. Have you seen this episode? What did you think? You'll have to let me know your thoughts in a comment below. And that's all I have, so be sure to come back and give me a listen. I'd love for you to like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe, all of which will help my channel grow, so thank you in advance. My name is Danielle. You're listening to Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.